Hello and welcome to the first of the free games roundup, where I'll be covering the free games or free-ish games that are releasing each week via Prime Gaming, the Epic Games Store and anything else that I can find. This first one's going to be a catch-up because there's a lot of games out on Prime Gaming and Epic Games Store. So what I'll do is I'll cover the ones that are leaving the soonest and put the rest of them into episode 2 next week. My plan for these is to at least play a couple of hours of each game to get an idea, to get a sense of what the game is. But I will be telling you what critic score is or the Steam score is, give you an overall view of whether you want to play it or not. Okay, let's get into the first one. First up on the Epic Games Store is Keylocker, turn-based cyberpunk action, which helpfully includes the genre and aesthetic in the game title. This is a pixel art, rhythm action, turn-based RPG set in a cyberpunk world where music has been banned. This one leaves the Epic Games Store free games on 7th of August 2025. I jumped into this one to take a look at it, briefly, as I do enjoy turn-based games. It looks and sounds great, at least in the short time, an hour or so that I played it. But unfortunately I just couldn't get into this one. It's entirely keyboard controlled and that takes a while to get used to, and there's a slightly eccentric control system. I still wasn't quite used to it after an hour. The timing windows in combat are pretty unforgiving and they don't give you much notice. It's a weird one. I had it completely down and fine in one play session and then I really struggled in the next one. I can see a good RPG in here, but there are a few frustrations that you need to push through in order to see that, and it just didn't work for me. It has a very respectable 81% on OpenCritic, with 71% of critics recommending it. Steam has this at a very positive, with about 200 reviews or so. The general consensus is that this is a great story, looks great, sounds great, though the combat timings are difficult, the world building can be confusing, as can be the romance system. This one looks like it's a game that, if it hits for you, you're going to ignore any sort of jankiness and difficulty with the systems, and you're going to have a good time. Or you're going to bounce off it really quickly like I did. I'd say worth giving it a look to see how it lands for you. Pilgrims is the other offering from the Epic Games Store that disappears on the 7th of August. This is a point-and-click puzzle-solving game at its core, wrapped up in a charmingly animated picture book-style shell. It's a really short game which has multiple solutions to all of the puzzles that you're presented with. In fact, all of the situations you're presented with, I should say. It uses a card-based inventory, not a card-based gaming system. That's not entirely clear from the screenshots. You collect companions and items in the form of cards that can then be played across maybe a dozen or so different areas of the game. Each companion uses items in a different way, and also interacts with the characters that you meet in a different way too. This leads to multiple possibilities of how you deal with each situation. I did one playthrough of this and it took about an hour, and I really enjoyed my time with it. The animations are funny and the experimentation with different item and companion combinations was pretty rewarding. I don't know how well that would hold up on repeat playthroughs for me though, and you'll need to do that to grab all the achievements. You can't do it in one go. Looking on Steam, this is overwhelmingly positive, with over 4,500 reviews. The general consensus is that it's funny, charming, well worth playing, and really short. Most people are talking about finishing all the achievements, taking somewhere in the 2-hour range, and it's not considered especially challenging, which I do agree with. I definitely recommend it to puzzle fans. Okay, on to Prime Gaming, and the first one I'm going to talk about is Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which, if I remember correctly, I have already talked about. There's a video up on the channel already for this, so I won't talk about this too much. This is a survival horror game from 2010. Looking on Steam, it's overwhelmingly positive. Over 90% of people recommend it. A lot of people talk about how scary it is, which didn't really hit that way for me. But it is a good psychological horror game. There's excellent atmosphere, tension in there. So it's a recommend from me. Next on the Prime Gaming list is Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. This also leaves on the 11th of August 2025. This is an FPS game from 1997, I think it was, and obviously you can tell looking at it. I dipped into this for an hour or two and it very much gave me Doom vibes, but in the Star Wars universe. I didn't play enough to get that far into the game though. I do know that you get a lightsaber and you get force powers as you play further through it. I didn't have too many troubles playing this game despite its age. I did need to install a Windows feature, Direct Play, but that came up and installed without any problems for me, and I didn't get any crashes. Where the age of this really comes in is in the resolutions you can choose. It doesn't even get up to 1080p. So playing this on a monitor that supports 1440p made it look pretty blocky. Obviously it doesn't look great, graphics wise, it's too old. But there's FMV videos in there for cutscenes which look pretty cool. I'm not really into retro FPS games, so it wasn't really going to be something that I got into in a big way. This game has stuff going for it though, I can see that even though I'm not the target market for this game. The game has a very positive rating on Steam. Reading through a bunch of them, there's a fair bit of mention of nostalgia here, so I think people are reliving their childhood experiences of playing this game and not really looking at it objectively. However, it does seem that it added quite a bit to the genre when it first came out. There are lightsabers involved here and force powers, and all the usual secrets that these kind of games did back in the day. This is clearly regarded as a classic of the genre, so if you're into FPSs, this should be one that you pick up before it goes. Station to Station is a relaxing puzzle game that's available on the Amazon Games Launcher until the 13th of August. It's a very simple premise. You need to build stations and tracks between points of interest on a single screen. Some POIs produce materials and others need them, and it's your job to link everything up with the limited money you have. Each time you link up a new station, you'll get more money, and sometimes cards, to let you link up more stations as points of interest are revealed. It's entirely up to you how you build your transport network, and there's extra complexity involved in your track choice. You can use those cards to switch track type to a more profitable one, say a heavy freight when you're transporting steel, or a luxury passenger train when you're just transporting people. Linking up a new station on a track will connect all of the stations on that particular line, and can give you bonus money depending on what needs you are fulfilling for the new station. This gives a little bit more depth than there might first appear to be. There are challenges on each of the 54 levels, which means you will have to interact with these more complex systems in order to complete them. If the puzzles weren't enough, you can also zoom in to see your trains puffing their way around the voxel based landscape, along with animals just doing their thing. I personally enjoyed dipping my toes into this game. I played through the first 8 levels in about an hour or so, which I think is long enough to appreciate the challenge that later levels could pose. There's no time pressure, so it feels quite laid back actually, and it gives you space to really think through the puzzle of how to use your limited resources and which is the best order to build your stations in. There is an option to randomise levels for unique challenges, though some of the reviews of the game say that this can generate unplayable scenarios, which is a shame. It has a good 81% on OpenCritic and sits at very positive on Steam. The negative reviews point to an inadequacy of the undo function as a downside, which I can understand. Because the map's revealed in sections, on your first try of a level you might set your stations up, only to realise that they're not really situated in the best position to link up to these new areas that you couldn't see to start with. But unfortunately you can't reposition a station once it's been connected by a track. When this happens, you can retreat to a previous checkpoint, but chances are you're going to need to restart the level. Overall though, people enjoy the graphics, the puzzles that get more depthful as you progress through the levels, and the music and lack of pressure that creates a relaxing place to play. This is a simple puzzle game that does only one thing: linking stations up. But it does it well. I think this is worth a look for puzzle fans. Next on our list, I'm going to take two games at the same time: Saints Row 2 and Saints Row 4 Re-Elected. These two are available on Prime Gaming via the good old game store until the 18th of August. As with all of the games in this roundup, this isn't a review, this is like a quick look, because obviously playing these games will take tens of hours. But I did dip in for a couple of hours of each of these, and I really enjoyed what I was playing. Saints Row 2 does have some stability problems. It crashed a couple of times for me just directly playing the game, just disappeared. And I also noticed that it really didn't like me tabbing out into another app. It just completely froze if I did that. I didn't have any performance issues as such. There was no frame dropping or slowdowns or anything like that. And the gameplay that I played a couple of sort of side games. Pretty fun. Very tongue-in-cheek, very aware that it's being very silly, but doing it really well. The control system is a little bit odd, especially for like driving vehicles. It's very unnatural, but the gameplay itself worked really well for me. There's just so much to do in this open world. It feels very open, even with like a very brief couple of hours playing. Obviously it's an old game, so it doesn't look the best, but looking at Steam it's still mostly positive for recent reviews, so people do enjoy it. Going on to Saints Row 4 Re-Elected, this goes to another level of craziness. The gameplay seemed equally open in the open world, and because of the scenario that it sets up, you effectively have superpowers, and running around jumping about like a superhero was actually really good fun. So even in my brief couple of hours as well of Saints Row 4, I was enjoying myself. This is also mostly positive on Steam from recent reviews, and it does look way better than 2, obviously. It's still 12 years old, so don't expect top of the line graphics now, but it felt like a really fun game. Definitely a recommend from me. The last one I want to mention is TOEM. This one leaves Prime Gaming on the 18th of August and is available via the good old game store, and is one that I've also already reviewed on the channel. If you want a full review of the game, check that out on the channel. For a very brief summary, this is a charming puzzle game that I quite enjoyed and definitely recommend to puzzle fans. It has an 80% on OpenCritic, and 90% of those reviewers actually recommend it, and has a fantastic overwhelmingly positive on Steam. So I kind of feel like I was right in my review, which is nice. Definitely get this if you enjoy puzzle games. Okay, I'm going to call it there because I really want to get this out for Wednesday night. So anyone that wants to get the Epic Games has still got a chance to pick them up before they disappear on Thursday. Hope this was helpful for people. If it was, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And that's it for the first Free Games Roundup. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.